Unfortunately, I don't speak Polish, but the last session seemed like a lot of fun. So I'll do my best to kind of keep the upbeat. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is the millennial mindset. And we hear lots of terms about marketing towards millennials, or what is that millennial. And just to kind of put it in perspective, I am a millennial. I'm 36 years old. I'm what I call a pager-wearing millennial. And so I actually have a pager. No, it does not work. But I am a pager-wearing millennial in the sense that I do know what a pager is. And a lot of times we hear people talk about millennials, and they say, born on Facebook. They've never had any idea what it's like to live without an iPhone. They're always connected. And I like to kind of caveat and say, I didn't have Facebook when I graduated college. You had to have an EDU address, actually, to get Facebook. I'd already given up my university address, so I couldn't even get on Facebook out of college. So the idea of what a millennial is definitely different depending on the audience, different depending on the demographic. And thankfully for me, I get to travel the world and speak to lots of different brands and help them kind of translate what it means to not only market to millennials, but what is this new digital consumer? And so this is a picture of my 3 daughters up at the top. So I'm a dad of 3 girls. But what I like to say I am is I'm a change evangelist. And so what I ask you to do for the next 20 minutes or 19 minutes or so is to kind of open your mind. And I want you to kind of have an idea of a new approach to what we're doing out here today. Perfect. Look at that. I like that. The time went out, though. We lost the time on that. But so this is a snapshot of what happens on the internet every single minute. So it's a GIF, so it kind of plays back and forth. If you guys search internet in real time on any browser, you'll get an idea of what this is. But if you think about it right now, and as you heard throughout the early presentations, starting off with Cubby, a lot of the conversation right now is that we have a really busy world. And I like to say, we've heard the concept that content is king. And whoever said content is king, I wish we could wring their neck. Because I think great content is king. And what does great content mean? Well, first of all, we have to understand our consumer and what that digital consumer looks like. And I can tell you, at the moment, the digital consumer is overwhelmed. The digital consumer has tons of distractions, lots of things that kind of send our minds in different ways. And I like to say, growing up, I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States. And my grandfather always told me that he got his news in 3 ways. He got his news from the TV, he got his news from the newspaper, and then he got his news from the local watering hole that he got a drink with every night at the pub. And those were the only 3 ways that he consumed news. And if you think about it today, we have 3,000 apps that give us 15 different notifications. We get 400 emails a day. There's apps all over the place. So today's consumer, not only are they distracted, but they're inundated with information. And so this is something we have to understand, but we also have to realize that we are living in a mobile world that is now full of these millennials. And over 50% of the workforce today are millennials. And what does that mean? So really what it means is over 50% of the workforce is under the age of 36 years old. So under the age of 36 is taking over the workforce. But beyond that, I believe we have to actually think even bigger. And for the first time in history, and this is one of my favorite slides, and the first time in history, we have 4 generations in the workforce. So never before have we had 4 generations. We have baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and even those pesky Gen Z. And I'm a dad of 3 Gen Zers. So this is for the first time we have a generation where we have to span this entire world. So when we talk about marketing, we have to understand our consumer, and we have to remember there's a wide vast of people that we have to market to. So we heard presentations this morning on video, heard presentations on SEO. I believe we heard presentations on social listening and social media, but those are in Polish, so I'm just going to guess that that's what those presentations are on. But this is something we have to keep in mind, especially this generation that was born on Netflix. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to go back to the day and age where commercials ruled when we had our TV. I love the world of Netflix, where we as consumers decide when we watch a show, why we watch a show, how long we watch a show. And one of the most annoying things now is when a TV show comes out on a weekly basis, because we've become such a binge society that we want all of the episodes right away. I'm watching a couple shows on Netflix on the way over on the airplane, and it's amazing how we're living in this new generation, this new world, where we want things where we want it, how we want it, and when we want it. And so what I'm asking you to do is change our perspective. we need to look at our perspective a little bit differently than what we have in the past. And I can guess a majority of people in this room, we've walked by those tables when someone's sitting at lunch, and there's 4 kids, and I say kids, 4 people sitting around, and all 4 of them are looking at their phone, right? And they're all, they're texting, and we immediately think, why are they not social? Like, their friends are right in front of them. Put down their damn devices and talk to your friends. Now, the perspective for us is that they're antisocial. The perspective for those that are sitting there on that table is that they're documenting their journey and sharing their lives with thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And so the perspective of this generation isn't that they're antisocial, it's that they're really social. And those of us that sit around at lunch and just talk to 4 people, well, you're not really spreading the message, you're not really social. And they look at us as the antisocial. So perspective is a very important thing when we're looking at this mobile consumer. And these are some of the things that we kind of label the millennial generation with, right? We've heard things like, they're the selfie generation, and I love selfies, so I fall into that mark. They're internet stupid. They couldn't write a check or sign their own signature if they saved their lives. They cry about everything. They're too transparent. We don't want to hear about when the last time they went to the toilet or what their last food. Why are they posting all this on Instagram? Jesus, they're entitled. Or one of my favorite ones is that, they get participation trophies. Everyone gets a trophy in this generation. And I like to remind people that if millennials are the ones that get trophies, who are the ones that are giving them the trophies? The baby boomer and Gen X parents. So we blame millennials for being entitled. We blame millennials for wanting those trophies, but it's really our parents that are ones that gave it to us. But when I ask you to change your perspective, I want you to take these exact same things that we label this generation with, and let's change that. Let's talk about, rather than saying that they're a selfie generation, they're selfie aware, which means they're very comfortable in their own skin. They understand who they are, what they are about. They are big into collaborating. They believe in trust. They are goal-oriented, which means they like the idea that they have something to work towards. They're loud and proud rather than entitled. And what this really means is that we must shift our perspective on when we're labeling this generation, because one thing that is for sure is that the generation is growing. And if they're already over 50% of the marketplace today is being run by the millennial generation, we have to start to understand who they are, what they are about, and really what does this mean for us as marketers. And then on top of that, this is how we kind of break it down. And so I look at 2 things. And so what I would ask you guys to do in this room is, rather than looking at millennials versus Gen Z or baby boomers versus millennial, when we're marketing, we have to look at 2 different groups. So let's throw out the age that they were born, because here's the funny thing. We label people based on a generation, right? So if you were born between 1981 and 2000, you're a millennial. The funny part about that is, who in this room, and I think this is my first time to Poland, but I'm guessing it's the same for here, who in this room likes being labeled? Nobody. Who likes being labeled for something that you can't even control, which is the year you were born? So now let's throw that out, and let's look at 2 different groups, and we look at the digitally unplugged. Now, I used to call this the digital dinosaurs, but then some people got offended, and then also some people assumed that they were a dinosaur. But my dad is a digital dinosaur. In his mind, the internet is annoying. He runs a very successful candy company in the United States, and they didn't get a computer until about 5 years ago. Because my dad's like, son, we do business via handshakes. We are a candy business. I travel. I go look at people face to face. And so my dad falls in the digitally unplugged. And then there's this generation, or this group, that is the digitally powered. And what I mean by that is, we look at today's digital world, and we say we are better off with digital in our lives than if we removed digital from our lives. And so when you're marketing, when you're thinking about your marketing campaigns, and throughout these next couple of days at this conference, I want you to think about these 2 different groups. Because these 2 different groups transform. The way that we market at this group is way different than how we market at this group. I can tell you, those billboards on the side of the road only work with this group, right? So when we start thinking about these 2 different groups, now what that means is that we also have to look at and say, how can we collaborate? How can we think outside the box to work with these different generations together? Because there's one thing that you'll learn, especially those that are under the age of 36, is that they love and believe in the power of mentorship and the power of collaboration. And so when you're looking at these younger generations, one of the things that I love to do, this is Casper Mattresses. If you guys have heard of Casper Mattress, the bed company, they worked with myself, and this is a gentleman named Tim Washer from Comedy Central, and they brought both of us to an event called South by Southwest in Austin. And they put this mattress in this little cocoon in the middle of the street in Austin, Texas, and it's really hot and muggy, and they had the two of us interviewing each other. They had a millennial interviewing the Gen Xer. And the idea was we were sharing our different perspectives on buying a mattress. And he was joking about the idea that why would someone send a mattress in the mail? That concept is ridiculous. And for me, when you see a car that has a mattress strapped to the roof, that looks ridiculous, right? And so this idea for what Casper Mattresses were doing is rather than marketing towards millennials or Gen Xers, they brought both of us together and they marketed together at one group of consumers, and those that looked and said, hey, I want to buy a bed and I want the bed to be mailed to me. And so what he did is he helped translate why it's important, and I helped understand, hey, why buying a mattress, is connecting a generation. So we need to look at generation collaboration. So we kind of get that perspective. We now understand, hopefully you guys have realized, okay, let's throw out the year that someone was born. Let's stop looking at those things for marketing. But now we have to understand, what does today's consumer look like? And so on this slide, I'm going to give you 4 different characteristics of today's consumer. And today's consumer is much different than yesterday's consumer. And for those, I just got back from the UK. I was speaking in the UK last week, and because it was my daughter's birthday, I actually flew home on Friday to the United States, celebrated my daughter's birthday on Saturday and Sunday, and I flew back last night all the way to here. So I've enjoyed some frequent flyer miles, that's for sure. But when you look at these different generations, it really doesn't matter where in the world you live, because here's the crazy thing, and I heard this all the time. When I was in the UK, they kept saying, Brian, we're 2 or 3 years behind the United States. And I believe that's crap. I believe that is complete bullshit, because here's the thing. Thanks to digital, thanks to the world we live in, it no longer matters where you live. It no longer matters what your background is. You now have the ability to learn, connect, and grow just like every other location in the world. And so we're now looking at places like Poland, places like the UK, places like Copenhagen. They're doing things more innovative and better than the United States. Trust me, I travel, and I know that for a fact. Americans are just better at boasting about ourselves and bragging about what we do, or we brag about things that we haven't even done yet, right? So that's kind of how us Americans work. But so I want you to look at this and believe it. Start picturing things. So the first characteristic of the 4 I'm going to talk about is today's consumers believe that disruption and change are the new normal. Changing things is normal today. If I like an app or if I like a company and I download it and I use it for 3 months and all of a sudden a better one comes, guess what this generation does? Uninstalls the old app and goes to the new app. This generation looks at disruption and change as normal. For those of us that, even myself being born in the 1980s, when I look at change, sometimes I'm like, well, I kind of really liked my old iPhone. Like, I already have it set up. I don't want to buy the new one because that means I have to restart it, put new apps on it. Like, we look at that as kind of annoying. But this new generation looks at disruption and change as normal. The second thing that they look at is they believe community is the future of business. When you look at community today, community is much different than we've ever seen before. Community not only is the people that you work with, but they're the people you partner with. They're your consumers. They're your friends. And so community now is that future of business. If you want to grow your business, you have to understand your consumer. You have to talk with your consumer. You have to market with them, because here's breaking news is that nobody likes being marketed to, and nobody likes being sold at. No matter where you live in the world, that's a guarantee that nobody likes being. The reason influencer marketing is taking off right now is we don't trust a brand. We trust people that are in our community. So the second characteristic you guys see up there is community is the future of business. Now the third one is an interesting one, because the future of innovation is truly collaboration. When we look at things like how are we going to cure cancer? How are we going to do some really innovative things in artificial intelligence, machine learning? How are we going to take robotics and make it work in the world? It's through collaboration. When you look at machines, and I know there was a presentation this morning going on about artificial intelligence, here's the thing. Artificial intelligence only works well when collaborating with humans. If humans do not get smarter along with machines, machines cannot get smarter with us. And so we look at this and say collaboration is that key to innovation. And then last but not least, which is probably the most important for this group, and this is a title of a chapter in my upcoming book, is that the future of marketing is relatability. The future of marketing is relatability. If you as a brand, if you as a consumer, if you as a company that's in this room right now, if you are not relatable with your consumer, if your consumer does not believe that you understand their pain points, they don't care how cool your product is. They don't care what celebrity is hawking it, what football player is talking about your product. If they don't believe you can relate with them, they will not purchase your product. Think of it this way right now. If you see a celebrity talking about the car that they drive, I saw Jaguar has 2 beautiful vehicles downstairs right when you walk in. If there's a celebrity talking about which one of those cars they're going to pick, well, can that celebrity relate to who I am? Does that celebrity know my pain points? Now, if I saw a YouTuber that test drives hundreds of cars a week, and the YouTuber is talking about those Jaguar vehicles, and that YouTuber looks like me, they act like me, they might have 3 children like me, all of a sudden, when that YouTuber talks about the cars, who do I trust more? The celebrity that doesn't even drive his own car, or the YouTuber that test drives cars and has my pain points? Relatability is the future of marketing. And so these are the 4 characteristics of today's consumers. Now, let me break it down a little bit for you on each one of those. The first one being change. You know, the idea now that we have the Netflix generation, we're used to these terms. And if you even look at the titles of the presentations throughout these 2 days of the event, a lot of the titles talk about failure. A lot of them talk about how do you be on demand, right? I think there's a presentation, 2 presentations from me right now that's talking about making marketing great again, which I enjoy the slang there, the slight jab at the let's just say not fearless leader that runs my country. If we look at change, look at this change. In the last 10 years, this is how many smartphones have existed. I mean, think about it. I remember the pager, right? I had one of these. I remember using it in high school, and people assumed originally that only drug dealers, used it, and it was just because drug dealers are more innovative than we were, right? And then all of a sudden, we went from this device to this in 10 years. I remember the days where it was the camcorder, the VHS camcorder that you held over your shoulder. That was in existence for 20 years, that same exact camcorder that every one of our parents had, and then we had, and probably now we're taking those videos on our phone, right? The age of change is happening faster than we've ever imagined. Second, collaboration. Tools like Napster. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Napster or remember Napster, but I like to say that was my first job in entrepreneurship. I was a freshman in college in 1999 at university, and I had a very fast internet connection, so I burned CDs on Napster and sold them to fellow students. So that was my first jump into entrepreneurship. I don't want to say that too often because if Sony's listening, they're going to come back with some copyright violations. But the idea now is that we are greater than me. Today's generation does not look at saying, if I know something and I don't tell anybody, I am smarter than everyone else. It is now, if I know something, how good am I at sharing this with others to work together to do great things? And so that's this generation. The reason Slack works is because Slack is literally built to empower collaboration with people outside of our workforce. I mean, Microsoft has deployed many, many tools. Microsoft SharePoint is around forever. And the reason SharePoint was powerful is that it helped you collaborate with your employees. The reason Slack came in and disrupted that space is because they said, why do you only want to collaborate with your employees? Don't you want to collaborate with your customers, your partners, maybe even your competition? And so collaboration has drastically disrupted this environment. And then last but not least on the 3, and I said I had 4, right? The third one here is community. If I would have told you 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, that you're going to rent a room in somebody's house based simply on online reviews, you would have said, I'm crazy. And yet Airbnb has disrupted the hotel industry. It's because we look at this as community. If you would have told me I'm going to hail a car that doesn't have any sign other than some random you in the window and have that take me places and trust the driver, that would have never existed. But now we live in this world where community is that future of business. And then what I like to say, and my last name is Fanzo, and this kind of works out well, but my marketing philosophy is think like a fan. If you look at this word, and I told you guys, this is the most important word for you guys in this room right now in a marketing stage, is relatability. Now, tomorrow morning, I'll be on the Inspire stage, and I'm going to talk about being really creative with limitations. But relatability right now is people buy from those that look like them. Think about it. When you go to a new town, and I travel a lot in the United States, and here's the thing about the United States. Every city that I go to, they have a sign that says, we have the world's greatest pizza. Every single city in the United States has the world's greatest pizza. The reason that Cubby said earlier that we don't trust marketers is because marketers claim things like the world's greatest pizza in every city. So do we trust a marketer or a brand, or when I travel to a new city, do I post on Facebook and say, what's the great place to get pizza? And when one of my friends recommends that, I trust that one recommendation a hell of a lot more than every billboard that claims it's the world's greatest pizza. So I want you to think about relatability in everything you do. And remember, the whole point of this presentation is that I want you to have perspective. I want you to open your mind to the possibility and the perspective of what is available for us today. Remember that nobody trusts a brand or a logo. I don't care how long you've been in business. One of my longest clients is IBM, and IBM's been around for a very long time. And one of the things they figured out was not many people even knew what IBM did or that they were still in business. It's because it's not about the logo, it's about the people. And then I'm going to leave you guys with this last slide. These are the two characteristics that you must embrace to be successful at marketing in 2018 and beyond. Perfection is a fairy tale. Nobody believes that you are perfect. Nobody believes that your brand's perfect. You must start putting out content in real time at the right time. And then last but not least, control is an illusion. You cannot control your customers. You cannot control your clients. You cannot control your messaging. But what you can do is you can inspire, you can motivate, and you can educate your audiences to better understand who you are and become more relatable. My name is Brian Fanzo. Thank you guys very much.